More importantly, our keynote speaker today, and I have the pleasure to introduce him, is Jeff Cates. So Jeff is the president and CEO of Intuit Canada. He leads a workforce of over 400 people and a team that, and a firm that's been recognized as one of the best places to work in Canada by the Great Work Institute of Canada. So it's really a pleasure to introduce him. And the firm is an interesting firm in that it sits really at the core of what most small businesses do. It really is the one that actually where all the data goes in. It's the actual, the kind of the nerve center, I like to think of it. And we're talking about QuickBooks. Intuit is also is a provider of Profile, Mint, and TurboTax. In terms of Jeff, so prior to joining Intuit in 2011, he was at Apple, where he worked on the different business solutions from small businesses to enterprise. And prior to that, he worked at HP on the consumer side. So, and in terms of education, Jeff's background, he has a Master's of Business Administration from the Schulich School of Business at York, and he also has a Bachelor of Commerce from McMaster University. So put your hands together for Jeff Cates.
Good, thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for that, Mike. I was HP, Apple, as Mike said. I also sit on the Startup Canada board, and I sit on a few other things like Startup Ventures, in addition to mentoring techs. But what most people don't know is I started off as a failed small business, and I couldn't raise capital, so I completely empathize for those that were trying to do that today, what you're going through. What I thought I would tell you a little bit about is the environment right now for AI, for automation technology. I take you through a little bit of like how we're thinking about it as Intuit, both potentially to inspire and help you think about how you might learn from some of the things we're doing. Also, who knows, maybe there's potential partners there based on our services that we're enabling. And then lastly, give you a few kind of points of advice from my experience helping to lead other technology leaders. Cool? Sound good? All right. So those are the three things. Canadian market overall, we've been doing research on businesses and the use of technology for quite some time. Technology is this awesome democratizer because increasingly large companies are taking something that used to be an advantage, systems, capabilities, and they're now becoming boat anchors. Because they've got these legacy systems that just can't keep up to the small, scrappy systems that are coming out. Certainly feel that as well. We see a lot of coming at us from different angles, solving different problems, and having to re-platform systems or change building systems. All of these things get in the way of us being able to do the things we want to do. So technology has all of a sudden empowered these like speedboats to get around some of the areas that bigger companies just can't solve for. What we found is that 61% of small businesses in Canada are adopting automation technologies to help them streamline their business, which is pretty high. You think that that's pretty high. When you compare it to the other Commonwealth countries in the US, we lag all of them. Not by a massive amount, but just enough to say that if you are doing technology in particular for small businesses, this may not actually be the best market to find your best tech-forward customer base. It also suggests we as Canadians could be a little bit bolder in how we think, which is also a good takeaway. AI in particular is this whole new field, obviously, that's spawning new businesses. It will be absolutely massive. PwC says it will grow the economy by 14% by 2030 to over $19.3 trillion, so pretty significant. It's such a great time, in particular for machine learning and AI in Canada, because we've got these godfathers of modern computer science, U of T, Montreal, Alberta. All three have these, not only these incredible institutions spawning research, but they all have these private-public relationships where they're actually building research that's actually being applied in commercial states or spawning, again, startups. And because of that, we're seeing increased specialization around clusters, like fintech clusters, or in general, accelerator clusters around different technologies. And then now we're starting to see the VCs coming in, creating just AI funding models, which is creating this awesome environment for Canada to punch above our weight. And so the government, of course, is also in this now, committing $125 million to help us with that approach to how we ensure that Canada kind of leapfrogs and is able to compete on the global scale. So it's such a great time. But it's not all just about building businesses based on AI. It's also the technologies that enable small businesses or entrepreneurs to compete effectively. And one of the core areas that's coming up is chatbots. Which you think, okay, how big is chatbots? Well, chatbots by 2022, they're saying will be close to $20 million saved support costs, up from something like $2 million today, and growing rapidly. Why does that matter? Well, because anybody at least is in the tech space, or you're scaling something for consumers and small businesses, we measure success by lifetime value over cost of acquisition. And of course, the major negative in that numerator is costs of supporting your offering. So the more that you can automate enables you to scale and ideally provide a better experience. So Intuit, we've been focusing on a variety of different areas of using machine learning and AI. We've been doing rules kind of based stuff for a long time. We have, as Mike mentioned, we have TurboTax. So in Canada, we do about 4.7 million consumers every year. Our ProTax solution does about another 4.8 million e-filers per year. So of the 23 million Canadians filing taxes, we're about 9 million of that to 10 million. So a pretty big chunk. And that's a massive amount of data flowing through our pipes. That's really, really compelling data, like where you work, are you saving for education, how many children do you have? Lots of really cool stuff in that. Mint, anybody use Mint out of curiosity? Yeah? Awesome app, totally free, love it, give it to your kids. Mint, basically, what you're doing is you're connecting your bank data, your credit card data. What we're doing is we're screen scraping, right? So we're going on, we're looking at essentially your display, taking those pixels, turning it into data, and then we're categorizing that using user contribution. So for example, you buy a coffee at Pete's Coffee Shop. Enough people have said Pete's Coffee Shop is a coffee shop. And so we're able to say almost immediately, here's where all your money's going, largely powered by that user contribution model. And now what we're able to do is we're able to look for trends to see how are you spending your money and how are others spending your money. So we can say things like, hey, you look like you're carrying a balance on that credit card. You're in a high interest credit card. There's a better solution for you based on what others like you are using. And then we can kind of direct over to that. What we'll increasingly look to do is merge the TurboTax data and services with the Mint services so that we can start to provide advice year-round on your personal finances. Actually looking at like bills coming in and auto pay that and adjust your money to put it to the best place. So that's kind of our like end state. Tax rate now, for the last 5 years, we've been really on automating as much as possible to actually almost completely do it for you. Canada's a little bit further than the US on this. US is really complex, simple and yet complex. All of the states, in some cases municipal, and you've got federal, all having different tax rates or programs. And so figuring out how to simplify that so that you don't have to know all of those forms or fill out all of that data has been the areas we've been focusing. And so largely what we've been doing is chunking down customers coming in so we can start to ask questions, so you don't have to know anything about tax. We just ask you questions so that you can complete the job. But if we can't continue to learn from users when we end up asking them a ton of questions, and it still feels like an onerous process. So increasingly what we're doing is we're building in more machine learning so we can see how others are applying to different situations and then only surface the questions that are important to you, while increasingly we just connect direct to pipelines of data and auto fill in so that you don't have to touch it. Again, with the CRA, we're able to pull almost everything in from the CRA or other sources that we've got that we should at some point just be able to completely do the job for you and then start to be able to give you other advice based on that data. QuickBooks, our mecca for QuickBooks, in all of our cases, we started with, gosh, we've got all these pools of data all over the place and services. payroll, payments. Initially, we kind of went to segments, small businesses, consumers, and we started pooling the data together to start to be able to offer one comprehensive offering, and then increasingly started looking into it pan of like, hey, all data go data lake with common data structure so that we're able to access that and serve that up in a variety of different ways. And so now with QBO, increasingly we've gone from that. Then we've gone to, okay, strip out mundane tasks. There's lots of things that you just should not have to do. It should auto do things for you, just like Mint. But eventually where we will go is enabling benchmarking and insights. So we'll be able to say, for example, on lending, we see your future, we see your invoices, we see your trend, we see your receivables, and we see your past. And so now with your past, present, and future, we should be able to say, and we see you're not going to make payroll in 2 weeks. And so drop down, here's some options to cover that period. Because based on your invoices, we think you're going to be fine in 5 weeks. So here's the options for covering you for 3 weeks with not only a way to easily access the funding, but also be able to pay that down. We can actually say, hey, we'll actually manage paying that down for you. So that's where we're going. It's super exciting. Obviously, for this audience, that probably fits the bill. Lots of work to do with banks, which is not terribly fast, but we're looking at alternative lenders. And in general, the banks seem to be moving much faster and a lot more progressive than they've been even 18 to 24 months ago. The part here that I'm really excited about, for software, it's so hard, especially when you're building something like accounting software that serves so many different problems and so many different users, from an entrepreneur to a veteran business user to a bookkeeper to a tax preparer to an accountant. We're always like forced to what words do we use, who's our primary target market, and it's really painful because you want to solve for everybody. What conversational UI does for us is it allows us to say, hey, we can speak whatever language